we are bridging generations from old, not to new, but to young. We are building bridges because we are bridging cultures which we have been discussing almost spontaneously before the formal program began. And we realized that culturally, although we may be the same individually, culturally we are different. So we need to build those bridges. And also we are building bridges because we need to walk over them. We need to walk over them because as we get older, we are not as agile as we used to be. And we need bridges to cross even the little gutters that we see around Kingston, the little steps that we see going up, we need ramps and so forth. So it is in this context that our topic for this evening is related to how do we make things accessible and how do we recognize the impact on our society, how much better off are we when we find a way to identify and involve our disabled persons. I know this is a subject for which there is oftentimes a lot of what we call political correctness, and we don't like to use the word, at least some of us don't like to use the word disabled, but we must call a spade, and we do not wish to be gratuitous or to minimize the physical and emotional impacts that impairment may have on many of us. But many of us realize that we are not all of the same physical capacity. So sometimes we refer to it as differently abled. I am not part of the panel, and I am just coordinating. My name is Herman Ambris. Actually, people encourage me to say Dr. Ambris. Yes, I'm a physician by trade. I'm retired. But I'm not so sure that, in fact, I'm quite comfortable with being referred to as Herman Ambris. So, in full disclosure, call me what you will, respectfully. Having said that, I'm going to call on our president, Mr. Jackson Farrell, to give his remarks. And subsequently, we will have the panelists introduced, and we will get on with the business of the evening. Mr. Farrell.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night to our viewing audience or listening audience that might be online, and those who later on will get a chance to view this, because 2 years after, some of us, when we turn to ICARE TV, we get to see what happened 2 years ago when we had our discussion. Before I make my remarks, I just want to say we are celebrating our 42nd anniversary. And as part of our celebrations, we usually honor people at our luncheon, which will be on Sunday. I want to take this moment to ask you to rise for a moment of silence, because both of our honorees have passed before being honored. And I want to include for the moment of silence, our former CG, Council General Mr. Selman Walters, who was on his way to becoming a member of the organization. So could we stand for a moment of silence, please? May God bless their souls. Thank you very, very much. Just a quick comment, response before I make some brief remarks. I think when you get things the old-fashioned way, you have earned them, you do not walk away from them. Because we had a brief conversation one day and we said, we know how those things go with them degrees. But Dr. Ambrose worked for his. He didn't buy it. He didn't steal it. He didn't copy it, as far as I know. And I think that could be, investigated. So as far as I'm concerned, he's Dr. Holman Ambrose. He's also Holman Ambrose, and he's also a friend. So you might want to use other words, but those are my words for him. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to have a discussion about differently abled. In New York, we're still saying disabled. It's not disrespectful, but it's playing with words, I guess. The important point with the words, I go to one of the persons who I admire and look at a lot every Monday night. I'm giving a plug, Rachel Maddow. He said, don't look at what they say, look at what they do. So the words may say something, but look at what they're doing for these people. That is the bottom line. Some of us have joined that group, and it doesn't mean the end of the line. It just means a new way of adjusting. So as we celebrate our 42nd anniversary, we want to embrace everyone. I know this is election season and where everybody has plans. And I think this topic is very, very important, because when we're talking about changing the face of Kingstown, making an Israel a city, we got to make provision to include what we're talking about tonight. We do want to use differently abled, differently talented, disabled, people with disabilities. To me, it's the same khaki pants. The treatment is the important part. As the old people used to say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So ladies and gentlemen, let's treat each other with respect. Let's embrace our people who may operate differently from us when we see them on the streets of Kingston, or we engage with them on the sidewalk. And when you do that, your blessings will be forthcoming. It's my duty tonight to not only welcome you, but to pass you on to the capable hands of the one who's going to guide us for the rest of the night, the moderator, Ms. Joy Matthews, herself an ex-teacher, herself working with us for the week of activities. And I just hope that for those of you who may be listening or watching, get to see this, you still have a couple days to make up your mind to join us on Sunday at Spring Resorts as we celebrate the ending of our 42nd activity with a luncheon. But ladies and gentlemen, it's my duty at this point to turn you over to Ms. Joy Matthews, who will take care of the rest of the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. I'm indeed honored to be the moderator of this evening's proceedings. It's always a pleasure to work with teachers, whether past or present. President, Mr. Jackson Farrell, other members of the association present, our esteemed panelists, of which I'll introduce you in a short while. Ladies and gentlemen, or should I say brothers and sisters, good evening. Don't grumble me, please. Good evening. Good evening. Right. We are all alive and well, and enough for us to be thankful and to shout out. Some persons are not so fortunate. This evening's topic: how does improving access for the disabled contribute to the economic well-being of our society? First, my brothers and sisters, according to the World Health Organization, disability has 3 dimensions. And as the President indicated, I know that there's some issues with us referring to our challenged individuals as being disabled. Some say differently abled. We have 3 dimensions. Impairment, that's where a person's body structure or function or mental function. Example impairments might include a loss of a limb or loss of vision. The second dimension, activity limitation, such as those persons who have difficulty seeing, hearing, walking, or problem solving. And the third dimension, participation restriction in normal day activities, such as working, engaging in social and recreational activities, and obtaining health care and preventative services. I say all this to say that when we refer to the differently able or the disability, those persons with disability, some are seen and others are not. So sometimes we see, we can identify them, and there are instances where you are not able to. The concept of access moves beyond physical accessibility. It focuses on the broad social inclusion, suitable for a just, equitable society. Accessibility benefits all members of the society. It brings about increased quality of life. It creates more independence. It also allows for better social integration. It also leads to better health, resulting in cost saving in a number of areas. For people with disability, it gives opportunity for independent living within the community, thus reducing the demands of special services, resulting in economic benefits to members of society. In an accessible, fair environment, people care for themselves. They live independently for much longer. Supports active aging. It also reduces the burden of care and also reduces the cost of service as it relates to the care services that are available. I'm not one of the panelists. I don't want to steal their thunder, but I think it was appropriate that we sort of the parameters for which we're going to discuss this evening's topic. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the panelists. I'm not, well, we are not gender biased. I'm so thankful. We are well balanced. So to my extreme right, I gotta figure out my right or my left hand. To my extreme right, I have Brother Junior Bacchus. He's a former qualified teacher, an honorary council of India, and president of the Association of the People with Disabilities for over 20 years. He's a social advocate for persons with disability. He's the current director of West Indian Insurance Limited, TA Century, and a human resource consultant. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Junior Bacchus. And to my immediate right, I have Mr. Terrance Davis. He's a past student of the School for Children with Special Needs, Kingstown. He's also the Vice President of the National Society of Persons with Disability, and he's also the coordinator. He's employed with the Ministry of National Mobilization. Allow me to give honor to give its due to that ministry. But the Ministry of National Mobilization, Social Development, Family, Gender Affairs, Youth, Housing, Informal Human Settlement. He's also the training director of the Special Olympics of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He likes having fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Terrance Davis. And on my left, we have the ladies. And to my far left, I have Mrs. Karen George Nero. She's a mother and a wife. She has 3 sons. She's currently employed as a caseworker. She specifically deals with persons with disability. So she's employed with the Ministry of National Mobilization, Social Development, Family, Gender Affairs, Youth, Housing, Informal Human Settlement. She's a community activist. She's fun-loving. She likes plenty fun. She's very patriotic, and we can describe her as a fashionista. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Karen George Nero. And to my immediate left, with over 30 years of teaching experience, I have Miss Charlene Azor. When I heard the name, I thought she was a foreigner. She brings a wealth of knowledge as an educator. The majority of her teaching career is spent working with students with special educational needs and disabilities along with their families. More recently, she holds the post of counselor At present, she holds the post of counselor at the School for Children with Special Needs, where she continues to serve as confidant, mentor, guide, and career educator. Mrs. Azor serves on the school's management team as well as an instructional team leader and transition facilitator for the young adults with disabilities who enter the world of work. Despite such daily tasks, her quiet, resolute to the daily challenges provides an advantage of professional resilience. It is with this experiential background that Mrs. Azor is determined to spread her passion about benefits of embracing differences, hence her participation in this evening's session. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Charlene Azor. And before I hand you over to our first presenter, Junior Bacchus, let me recognize our sponsor and express our sincere gratitude, Metrosin General Insurance Company Limited, and also IKID TV, who is carrying this evening's proceedings live and will allow for us who are here to maybe tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, maybe sometime in the week to look back and really have a good look at what transpired this evening. Without further ado, I'll hand you over. Oh, before that, the panelists will make their presentation. Hold your questions, jot them down somewhere, and then we'll open the floor for not only questions, you might have suggestions, or maybe an idea that was not presented here, so you will be allowed to do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, Brother Junior, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to first recognize the sponsor. Lots of time, these kind of events, the weeks, let me some, yeah, all right. At these events, we don't pay attention to sponsors, but I must say, Metrosyn General Insurance Company Limited is one of the two locally owned, locally managed insurance companies in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that the other one is Century Insurance Limited, and we work together very often. We get a lot, do work in many areas. So just want to recognize the two most important insurance companies in our market. I personally got involved in this subject of disability by accident, I believe. In 1995, when I took on the job as the administrative coordinator for the National Youth Council, I was asked by the Canadian University Services Overseas, CUSO, to be the orientation officer and supervisor for a volunteer from Canada that came to St. Vincent to assist a little group that were running a program over in Argyle at what we call Johnson Hill. That location no longer exists. That's where the airport is now. And that group, which was headed by Miss Morris at the time, was getting the help from CUSO, and they decided to get me involved in supervising her for the 6 months that she was assigned to St. Vincent. Before that, I wasn't paying any attention to people with disability. I know people will be wheelchair bound. We just go along. In fact, many times you hear somebody have an autistic child or somebody have what we say, a handicap. Those were the terms we used at the time. And they just hide them away at home. People don't get to see them. In fact, parents feel very embarrassed to expose their, quote unquote, at the time, handicapped child to public. And that kind of motivated me beyond doing the supervisory work with the CUSO group, motivated me to get involved directly in the program. And that is what I did 30 years ago. And since then, along with all the other organizations that came over the period, we had the School for Children with Special Needs, the National Society of and for the Blind. We have the Sunshine School in Beckwith. We have the St. Benedict the Nursery in Georgetown. We also have the, I'm missing one.
Special needs in
School,
Georgetown.
did I say School for Children with Special Needs?
In Georgetown as well.
Yeah, there was one in Georgetown too, in Byra. But with all those organizations, we work together to advocate, and of course, the National Society of Persons with Disabilities, NSPD. So we work together to bring to the fore the conditions that exist within the country. And we got to the point where we advocate for people to bring out those people into these organizations, these groups, so that we could have some form of socializing. We also got the government to retrofit many of the schools so they could facilitate persons with disability to get access to normal education. We also got the banks and other businesses around Kingston to retrofit their entrances and so on to allow for people to access their businesses, to develop that level of independence. We did those things because we recognize persons with disability do not wish to have people having pity over them. They do not wish to have somebody trying to care for them. They just want to live a normal life like everybody else by ensuring that we put the facilities in place so they could move around, enjoy, and do whatever else there is to be done, like every other normal, every other person who may seem not to have a disability. So that's what we set out to do, at least from my end, 30 years ago. And I must say, I have seen people, children, come from what used to be from under the bed because they were hiding them at home to get to this stage in life where they have traversed. And let me use one, for example, one young lady named Shikwania Gill. She came, Jilks, yes, she came to the Helping Hand Center. I think around 2006 or thereabout, and move her away from the Helping Hand Center to the Dorchester Primary School. Then she went into the Girls High School, went on to the University of the West Indies. Before that, she went to the community college, and she was wheelchair bound. I must say, physical disability. And she went all the way, I think she's currently working somewhere at the National Archives. And that is just an example of what our society must do to facilitate normal living of persons. And regardless of a disability, we believe that persons should be encouraged and helped and supported to live that normal life. When I became involved with the flour mill, even before that, I saw the need. I saw the need to allow persons with disability to get involved in work. I joined the flour mill in 1997 and stayed there until 2007. And I have encouraged and facilitated several persons with disability to work at the company. And I think that is what I would like to see throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where people are not looked down and pitied. People with disability have just as good the ability as any other normal person. We just have to make the accommodation to facilitate whatever type of disability they suffer. Similarly, through the school system and so on, they should be encouraged and facilitated. So the topic we discuss in improving access contributes to the economic well-being of society. I want to recognize Minister of Education, the Honorable Curtis King, who now join us. Good to have you. Could I say he is an ex-teacher too? We are all ex-teachers. So the subject for discussion is very important, and I am not going to get into areas where I know, for example, Ms. Nero will get into, because the government has set out a very good program. In fact, they began with the drafting of an act for persons with disability when they got the services of Dr. Haynes to draft the legislation in 2021. Yeah, 2021, they started that process, and we were engaging peoples all across the country. And a lot of organizations and individuals participated in that process. And that legislation is, I don't know if it is passed yet, but Ms. Nero will tell us if it got through the parliament to become an act. But it takes care of many of the issues that we are required to address to facilitate the economic well-being of persons with disabilities. I know I have limited time, but let me also say that we must, as a community, show appreciation and advocate for persons with disabilities, whatever type of disability to be supported. We have made some steps. I know that there are mechanisms in place that would, I think the Fay Hall Primary School, they have had a very good program there for at the primary level to support persons with disabilities. And I must say that more and more companies are required to get persons involved, get their places of business retrofitted to facilitate persons with whatever type of disability there is. I will leave it here and allow for to take on some of share some of my knowledge when the question time arises. But we do have 4 panelists and we will allow just about 8 minutes or so for each panelist. So let me hand you back to Sister Joy.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to hand you over quickly to Brother Terrance Davis for him to make his presentation.
Okay, well,
Let's welcome him, please.
Good night once again to all who are gathered here. It is very important, tonight's topic, because we are talking about economic growth, and economic growth works for everybody. Everybody wants to be economically viable, and I'm trying to stay away from these big terms because there's not always the terms that we give out. Some persons may not understand, but in the whole aspect of moving forward in terms of a country, or even as in terms of the whole world making its step further and further, it is very important for us to look at the benefits that can happen or would happen if more things are put in place for persons with disabilities, persons who are differently abled. Because, for instance, as was said previously, it not only just brings about an access to maybe a building or to the hospital or to an office, but importantly for persons who are differently abled, you give us an independence, you give us our own voice, you give us something in us that says, yes, we can do it. Yes, we needed this to show you a long time ago that we are capable. Because the thing about it is, when you put these methods and things and structures in place, you're putting it in place for persons with disabilities. But this is the other side of it. You also have to think about the older persons. You also have to think about the pregnant ladies. And you also seriously have to think about those who would be differently abled, maybe due to walking and falling, or maybe they had an accident. So they're not disabled all their lives, or so that's temporary. But putting these ramps, putting these rails, putting even a different type of light, or having sign language for persons who are hearing impaired, these are just some of the things that would help our persons, and I say our because I am a person with a disability. I'm sitting, so you may not see it, which works for me many times. And but to continue, when we put these structures in place as well, it helps us as a country, because then we are involving not just one group of people, but for instance, if you put a ramp into one of the stores, a wheelchair can get in there. Then as a person in a wheelchair, I go in there, I get to do my business. Then I come out and I say to my other friends, boy, you know, you got access in this place over here. And they got some of the latest clothes and all the latest style. So we are now selling your business to our people. So more people get to go in there. Outside of that, when you start doing that, parents are going to visit there. Other persons with whom would have friends that are differently able, disabled, they would also visit. So you have to understand from the very beginning, putting these steps in place to make it accessible. And when I talk about accessible, I also need to say at this point that accessibility is not just always a physical thing. So we very much need to be mindful of that. But putting the necessary steps in place to make things accessible for the differently able is only going to help to make our country and any other place a more friendlier place. It's also going to help to make our country stand out because we are a very small island. But if we put these things in place, there'll be more persons that would be willing to come into St. Vincent. There'll be more persons who would hear about St. Vincent. And we also need to be mindful that even when we put the steps and the structures in place for persons to use, our attitude, I say again, must go hand in hand with the structures that are put in place. Because a negative attitude with what you perceive to be a positive thing, if the person who is helping me to get where I need to go independently has a very negative attitude towards me, I'm not going to want to come into your place. I'm not going to even want to be in the same area with you. I'm not going to want to talk to you. And you know the funny thing about that? Attitude also affects positively and negatively persons who are not disabled or differently able. Keep that in mind. And with that, I would pass over to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. You notice that we normally say that it's ladies first. And you notice I didn't do that, right? Right. So now I'm going to move to the ladies on my left. Well, yes. Yes.
Testing.
I'm going to move to Miss Azor,
Testing.
who is on my immediate left, to make her presentation.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Welcome her, please.
And I am so pleased to be a part of this panel because this is a conversation that needs to be had, must be had, right? I just wish to bring some awareness about inclusion and accessibility to give perspective to this evening's dialogue. I believe that inclusion and accessibility are intertwined. We cannot have one without the other. Persons with disabilities bring unique experiences and viewpoints, enriching our understanding and innovation. So if you get to know a person with a disability, you would be able to better understand and relate to them rather than standing at far off and just like presuming that this is what it is. You have to engage, you have to interact, right? So we need to remove the barriers that Terrance was speaking about. These barriers hinder persons with disabilities from becoming independent, productive citizens in the Vincentian society. The barriers to inclusion can take many forms, including physical barriers, and I do believe that we are quite familiar with those, but I will still give a little bit more information. this simply means inaccessible buildings, transportation, and public spaces that limits mobility for people with disabilities. Number 2, attitudinal barriers, which takes the form of prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination that lead to exclusion or unequal treatment of persons with disabilities. Communication barriers. This results in the lack of accessible formats such as Braille, sign language, and case in point, we are here and we are presenting to a wide audience, just not here. And we could have had someone who could have interpreted for the general people, the society, and even because we are streaming online and there are persons who cannot speak and they have to use sign language, it would have been really, really good if we had an interpreter, right? Policy and systemic barriers in the form of inadequate laws, regulations, or institutional practice that fail to support inclusion. And as my esteemed panelist, Mr. Bacchus, was saying, 2021, thereabouts, we had consultations for an act, and I do believe, I stand corrected, Minister, the draft, it's still in draft, right? So we should be able to have policies in place for our persons with disabilities. Economic barriers, where there's poverty or lack of resources that restrict access to education, healthcare, or employment opportunities and opportunities. And lastly, educational barriers, where there's limited access to inclusive education. Thank God we are moving away from that. Addressing these barriers is very essential to create a truly inclusive society, because we have persons with disabilities living amongst us. And fortunately, we are moving away from marginalization and stigmatization. And the reality that we know now is a far cry from when I started to teach some 30 plus years ago, right? And today, persons are more tolerant and they're more accepting of persons with disability, because forums like this evening's activity is taking place. And we are informing the general public and bringing awareness. Simply put, there is more access for persons with disabilities if we do things like this. If we have forums, if we have consultations, if we have discussions, right? And there are quite a few success stories in St. Vincent where persons with disabilities have surpassed societal expectations and have broken glass ceilings, like Shaquana Jilks, as Mr. Bacchus spoke about. And one such individual is right here with us, Terrance, right? He is my colleague, he's my brother friend. Should I dare to say Terrance the other thing? All right. Okay, I taught Terrance, and his success story is phenomenal. If you should hear his story, he's right here, and he is evidence, he's testimony to what inclusion could do. If he was left, he would not have been here, right? So we give thanks to those persons who would have started the trend, started, well, I would say a force to include persons with disabilities. Some wonderful ladies, they saw it fit to have these children being seen because they were locked away, they were tied up, and nobody really knew about them. And it's still happening, because we have some students who would have been hidden away. And I'm very grateful that we are moving away from this, right? The next and most recent one is Mr. Thomas George. And I do believe all of us would have heard about Thomas. Thomas has joined the August ranks of the St. Vincent Grammar School. He came 79th for boys and placed 173 overall. And I'm pleased to say that Thomas has transitioned. The other day I went up to grammar school and you could not tell the difference between Thomas and the other boys. Thomas has a disability that is visible. It is invisible, right? And he is the representative for the first formers for maths at grammar school. And he is doing tremendously, right? And Thomas says, I'm okay, I cool, you know? And we want to see more of that. We want to see more of the inclusion in our society because, as I said earlier, we have persons who have challenges, some visible, some invisible. The visible ones, it's right in front of you. You can see those in wheelchairs, those who are blind, those who have impairments with their limbs, those who are physically challenged. And the invisible ones, like persons who are hearing impaired, we don't know that they cannot speak until we start to have a conversation. Then we realize also right now we have lots and lots of children who are on the spectrum. And unless you know, you wouldn't know, right? And I want to say that accessibility is key to unlocking the potential of persons with disabilities. When we remove barriers, we make it possible for them to join the workforce and to contribute skills and innovation that boost productivity. Because we have lots of persons with disabilities who are extremely, extremely talented. They can do so much more than you and I can do, and we need not take them for granted. All right? And also, accessibility starts with an understanding of what the needs of our special people are. If you don't know what they need, you won't be able to meet the needs, right? And once we know what those needs are, then we start to put them in place. The kind of access that we want to tap in is removing the barriers that I would have spoken to about. We need to remove those barriers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Sometimes if you hear the stories, you would be so shocked, right? First of all, removing physical accessibility ensures that buildings, transportation, and public spaces have ramps, elevators, wide doorways, and accessible restrooms so everyone can move freely and safely. Sad to say, today there are some places that have no physical access. And persons with disabilities, they are a part of our society and they need to do everything that everybody else does. They need to go to the banks, they need to go to the hospital. We need to be able to educate society at large so that they can meet the needs of these persons. I remember when COVID was on, there was this gentleman, he wanted to go take the vaccine. And we had a station in Victoria Park, and it so happened that I passed through Victoria Park, and the nurses were there, and they couldn't for the life of me understand what he was trying to say. This is just to say that if we educate our nurses and we give them opportunities to learn sign language, they would have been able to deal with the man. And he was there and he was becoming agitated, and thank God I passed and I was able to tell them that he came to get the vaccine. Because I do believe that he was really frustrated and he could have had an outburst. So we need to inform ourselves and we need to have accessible communication that allows for information to be available in multiple formats. The sign language, the braille, easy to understand print, and so that everybody can understand it. Equal opportunities. Sometimes there are not equal opportunities here, so we need to ensure that persons with disabilities have the same chances to get education, to get jobs, and leadership roles without discrimination or bias. And also supportive attitudes where communities and workplaces foster respect. I deal with transition for my older students into the workplace, and unfortunately, sometimes it's really hard to get them a job. The stereotype and the preconceived notions that they would not be able to perform. And mind you, when they do better work. Terrance can attest to this, Mr. Bacchus can attest to this. They work really well. And the next thing, because they may have their limitations, sometimes they are treated really badly. They're underpaid, they're embarrassed, they're insulted. And because some of them don't have the voice for someone who would advocate to them, sometimes people take advantage, and we don't want that. Improving access for people with disabilities significantly contributes to the economic well-being of St. Vincent in several ways. When you provide access, people get to go to work, because then the workplaces would be retrofitted for a person with a disability. And persons with disabilities, they have buying power. There are special things that they like, and they spend money, and we know that money runs the world, and nobody refuses money. So if we give them the opportunity to spend and purchase goods that would help them, goods that would cater their needs, and if businesses would prioritize accessibility, it would boost sales, it will boost revenue, right? And plus, when persons with disabilities work, they pay taxes. When they pay taxes and when they are employed, they wouldn't have to depend on government assistance, because they are earning an income and they can take care of themselves and their families. And mind you, they do have families. Quite a few of them are married with children, and they are contributing meaningfully to our society, right? We also have to provide reasonable accommodations for persons with disabilities. This simply means making adjustments in the workplace, in school, or whichever place they go. And when we remove barriers, that happens, and they are better able to function. They will become more independent. They will become more confident, and we want to promote independence among persons with disabilities. So we have to remove the barriers, and we have to want to spend the money, and when we spend the money, things will happen. We have to do the needs assessment to know what persons with disabilities needs as against to what they don't need, or what can be approved, what can be removed, right? So when we do these things, it will ensure equal access and opportunities in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it will move us forward into the full potential of all its members, not only the abled, but also persons with disabilities. And for those persons, the word disabled is still relevant. We can use it. And the thing is, sometimes we don't ask persons with disabilities what they want. They have a voice, and we need to hear them. Right? So thank you.
of the Ministry of National Mobilization, Gender, Persons with Disabilities, Cooperative, Child Services. The Ministry of National Mobilization's mission is to engage social protection through social transformation and social empowerment, protection and justice using mobilization mechanisms. It is my pleasure to be here amongst our esteemed members at the head table, Mr. Bacchus. I would have known all a number of years at the Helping Hand Center, Terrance and Miss Azor, because I have a sister who has a disability. So more or less, this is part of my life. And it's amazing that I ended up being appointed at the desk for persons with disabilities. It has been a long road, and I am happy that we're having this conversation tonight about granting access for persons with disability. And it would also strengthen us as a ministry of national mobilization in our advocacy for our persons who are differently abled. At the Ministry of National Mobilization, we have a legislation that is still in the draft stage. During that activity, we were able to engage different stakeholders from throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the assistance of Dr. Haynes. Mr. Bacchus was also part of that discussion, and we are happy to have him and others making their meaningful contribution. Access means that persons with disability will be able to acquire services and programs from different state agencies, locally and also abroad. It means that they would be able to speak for themselves through access. It also creates a sense of independence where they would be able to live a normal life, even though they are differently able. There's so many different disabilities. It means that we would have to put policies in place that can facilitate these persons. At the moment, we would have had the first one of the sessions of Parliament, which was held in September. We celebrated with the deaf community World Sign Language Day. The color designated was blue for the deaf community. And part of the Parliament session was translated or interpreted by a member of staff of the School for Children with Special Needs, Mrs. Cindy Roberts, and my coworker, Terrance Davis. And I'm sure that it was very well received, right, Minister King? So that is one of the barriers that we are trying to reduce so that persons within the community can understand what takes place within Parliament. And I'm sure that in the near future that we would be able to continue with this. When we break the barriers for persons with disability and we grant them access, it means that they are able to socialize with one another. Some of the persons with disabilities, they would not have seen their fellow schoolmates for years. reason being lack of transportation. Their caregivers are not in a position to afford maybe a taxi. But the Ministry of National Mobilization, we soon will be launching our MOVE campaign. We have 2 buses that have wheelchair facility at the back of the van. So you will see 2 buses with the MOVE sign, Mobile Vincentian Empowerment, right? We have started a disability empowerment program, and this program is to support social and empowerment services for the disabled community. We have one of the programs on the windward side. We also have one on the leeward side and in Beckway. So we have not left out the Grenadines. And I can tell you, as the officer for these programs, they are really enjoying themselves. They're learning skills that would make them self-sufficient. They are socializing, of course. They themselves have a story to tell. They're doing craft. And it gives them a sense of independence where they're able to express themselves. At the Ministry of National Mobilization, we offer different services to support persons with disabilities. We have the disability grant, which is a temporary support until they're able to transition to public assistance. We also offer medical grant, whereby persons are afforded lab services. They're afforded also medication support. We also have at the ministry the vulnerability desk. So this encompasses disability, home care, and the elderly. So persons with disability can access home care services. So this service supports the caregivers, their relatives, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, where the caregiver from the Ministry of National Mobilization would be able to provide that additional assistance. Another assistance that we offer is funeral grant. Some persons are not able to provide, as we would say, for bonpan. So if you're short, we also offer a financial grant for persons with disability once the family is having an economic challenge. Okay? We would allow for more advocacy and more awareness sensitization so that persons can know that there are different types of disabilities. And what we did for the year, we've had awareness programs. We've had World Autism Day. We've also had awareness on World Down Syndrome Day. We just celebrated this week White Cane Day, which supports persons who have visual challenges. So the white cane would be able to guide them and give them that sense of independence as to their locale, how they're going about their homes, maybe the streets in Kingstown. That march and rally was done with the collaborative effort of the Voice of the Disabled. And we partner with different agencies. We partner with the School for Children with Special Needs. We partner with the Voice of the Disabled, the National Society for Persons with Disability. We also partner with National Society of the Blind, the Sunshine School, and the Special Needs in Beckway, and any agency who's willing to partner with us, because we have to support our persons with disability. So these are the things that, granting them access, it means that they would be able to live better lives. They also contribute to the economy. It means that if someone with disability is employed, it reduces public costs. They can make a contribution to the credit union. They can make, as you know, today's World Credit Union Day. They would be able to make contribution towards the NIS, whereby they might be granted a pension, should they live to the age of 60 and above. We have to remember that persons with disability have lots of talents, lots of skills, and they're very great at problem solving. So once they are granted that access, it means that they feel that sense of independence. They're able to give value to nation, contribute towards nation building. So at the Ministry of National Mobilization, we're happy that we can make a difference in their lives to make sure that they feel that they are worthy, right? So we have to design policies that in the long run, our policies that are designed can be used for future reference, right? It also means that we have to make sure that they're secure, that they're safe, and that they are not misunderstood. We have a few business places within St. Vincent and the Grenadines who have employed persons with varying disability. They have families, so they are able to provide for their families. We notice that there are few areas in Kingston that are wheelchair accessible. If you look at the schools, there are ramps in place that can accommodate. The Georgetown Secondary School has one gentleman who signs, and the Ministry of Education has been able to employ a teacher who assists him with sign language, right? And he was also present at the Parliament session. So the Ministry of National Mobilization is having access for persons with disability through our Cool campaign. That's where we have our community Olympic games, and persons with varying disabilities were able to go to different areas and participate in sports, and it was amazing. At the end of the games, there were prizes to be won, and they were so excited. So I'm encouraging persons that when you see somebody who's differently able, give them the respect, be kind, let us be sensitive towards their needs. At the Ministry of Mobilization, we would be starting our sign language sessions, and we're hoping that it would go throughout the civil service, and other persons will come on board to learn sign language because it's difficult when you have someone coming to you who cannot hear or cannot speak, right? And you cannot have that conversation. So oftentimes we might have to tap in on our dear Terrance or the School for Children with Special Needs so that we can understand what their needs are. We also make sure that when we're making policies that we engage persons who are differently able. It is not right for us who are able to write a plan or write a document and not have that person with the disability involved, right? So we need to have their input in making our decision. So on behalf of the Ministry of National Mobilization, we want to thank the Ex Teachers Association for inviting us here to be a part of their program. And I must say as well, the ministry advocates with the Ministry of Housing, which the YES program is a component of that ministry, to engage persons with disabilities to be a part of that YES program. So they're afforded $800+ per month being on the YES program. So we're expecting great things 2025 and beyond for our persons with disability, and we look forward to your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got the history as it relates to the road to inclusion and recognizing all the persons who have who are differently able. We got real life. We got real life experience, real life story told by Brother Terrance. Sister Azor touch on the benefits of inclusions, the different kinds of barriers that the differently abled face on a daily basis, and the many shortcomings. And last, by no means least, we were given, we were taken down where we were told about the legislation that are in place for the differently able and all the various services that they can be involved in. But two words sort of really came out of the whole presentation. I think it has to do with education, where we as individuals need to become more aware of what is happening with our differently able and what we need to do, and also the need for us to involve the differently able in activities or legislation or whatever that that relates to them. So once again, thank you. Put your hands together one more time. And I'm going to open the floor now for comments, questions. So we'll have the Minister of Education who is present, and I'm going to, as a former teacher, I guess he could, you want? Oh, there's a mic. Former teachers, you could project your voice, huh?
Yes, I don't even think I need the mic. Yes. Pleasant good night to everyone, and let me acknowledge the panelists. But before I do so, St. Vincent region. Before I deal with the topic, I just want to acknowledge the presentations made by the different panelists and to comment to you don't have to go into details with that. As I'm saying, I believe that they did a very good job. I would only want to, yes. I would only want to add to that aspect of the topic by saying, if we draw the analogy with what people call non-performing assets or debt capital, whichever one you want to use. The fact is, where you have non-performing assets, then you're not going to get the sort of returns that you would want to achieve on your investments. Similarly, well, I should have put it the other way around. Where capital is lazy, idle, you're not going to get the sort of returns that you want. Now, I want more to speak to the issue of why we are here and at this stage that we are at. And that, most importantly, they are human just like us. And they too deserve the treatment that would allow them to achieve their own goals. And therefore, it is imperative on those of us who could make a difference to help them to realize those goals. I know I was long, but I figure I had to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to support what Minister King said a while ago, research has shown that workers with disability have higher rates of retention, better attendance, and fewer occupational health and safety incidents than those without a disability. I recognize Brother Pajak's hand, and he's coming to make his
Good night to
contribution.
everybody. Yeah. Oh. Yes,
Come closer to me, Pajak.
well, to me, I'm a person. This is a panel discussion, and I expect people to ask questions. I could come up here and make a 2 hours presentation too. My question is, first of all, I think the lady at the school. I want to know if presently, because I've been a teacher for quite a long time. And in my day, you had a guy, De Silva, used to go to all the schools and try to identify some of the students, especially with hearing disability and so on. So I want to know if this is still done. Secondly, in terms of you're talking about the general attitude and so on. To what extent would you say, and this will be to all the panelists, that the problem that we face in terms of accessibility and how the whole society reacts is because it is a failure of the general education system in that we have not created the attitudes that are necessary within the school system. In that our education system, well, I don't know, those who went to college with me will know that Ms. Thomas, and I make this consistently in this country, you have BASK, behavior, attitudes, skills, and knowledge. And because we seem to be consistently focusing on knowledge, we have a lot of problems within the society. All right, I'll stay there for now. So if you have any comment to make on what I said.
Your first question.
To answer Mr. Jack, we don't have that service per se. Parents would have to take their children to the doctor, either to Dr. Thomas or at the hospital, to get that service done. I remember when Mr. De Silva actually used to come into the school to do the test. Sonny De Silva, yes.
Except to say you have two persons in the Ministry of Education in a unit that do assessment.
In terms for hearing impairment? General. Okay, you mean at curriculum?
I do
I just want to give a suggestion.
Well, Pajak, if you have additional questions, don't mind.
No, it's a suggestion in response to the question.
Oh.
To the minister, and even probably to your department, and it probably you can get, the Silver, I think, was trained in Canada. And in fact, before he retired, we discussed this thing, and he was surprised that nobody understood him and nobody went to train. Because I think the idea of people have to carry their children to the doctor to identify this. No, this is something that could be sought even in preschool. So you have people trained to go and visit the school. I think we should make a serious attempt to it. And you have a second question to answer.
To rebut to that, remember, I do believe that parents have the responsibility to take care of their children, and if they realize that their child may be having challenges, just remember that early intervention and detection is optimum. So if you see your child and you realize that your child has challenges, you take the necessary steps to get your child looked after, right? And then if they don't have the finance, they can always go to the mobilization that provides service in getting the children assessed, because one of the requirements for entry into school, the child must have a clinical assessment done, right? And the parents are responsible, but if they can't do it, they get help.
I hear what you are saying, but I still feel what they had previously is the better option.
Pajak, about 7 years ago, when I was still at school, there were 2 persons from the Ministry of Health that came to check the grade 1 children regularly. Yes, no, apart from the school health, they had the machine and so where they will, yeah, that they used to. I'm not too sure if it's happening now.
Yes.
Yeah, I recognize Thompson.
Yes. Thank you very much. I wanted to make a comment, but I had a question for Terrance, you know. I think in my profession as a medical doctor, I've also been conscious, and I think this comes under the mental and behavioral forms of disabilities. And I'm not talking about, there are a lot of people who suffer from various forms of anxieties and from phobias. Now, they have the simple ones, heights, going onto a plane, and so, but there are some very strange phobias and anxieties that people have. Going into a crowd, going into open spaces, and there's a long list of them, hundreds of these phobias, and you would not imagine how many people suffer from them. They would say in a given room like this, at least 10% of us suffer from these phobias. You know, I have my phobia of cess. I'm kidding you. But I just mentioned that by the way. But Terrance, I want to ask something a little different, because you have been an advocate for a wide array of persons with disabilities, persons of all forms of disabilities. And so we've heard in terms of the various services that are provided for persons with disabilities. But from the standpoint of being part of that, of individuals with disabilities that you've stated, how do they feel? What expression do you get from them? Whether those who are still in their homes or those who come to your program at the old Anglican school, how satisfied are they? How do they feel? And what do they think needs to be improved and provided for them? Can you give us any kind of summary or so in relation to that?
All right, well, basically, as you said, the group is really wide, and yes, just to go back to a couple of years ago where you had COVID, one of the things that we saw, because there was a lot of isolation, a lot of our members was troubled with the fact that COVID was there, and one of the things that was part of their very lifeline of getting together with their friends and doing daily chores couldn't happen. So there was this added pressure of not just the COVID, but mentally realizing, boy, I'm in a world by myself. Nobody understands me. Nobody's taking the time out to realize, wait, there's this thing that is happening. We don't know what it is, but we are here and we're asking for help. We couldn't get it. I know a friend of mine, he said, boy, I'm home every day and I'm struggling. There's also a couple of friends of mine who, since the period of COVID to now, these phobias came on. And when you look at some of these persons, these were some of the more educated persons with disabilities. We also had about 3 years ago where we took a team to Germany and for Special Olympics. And on the floor that we were, there was an outbreak of COVID, and 2 of our athletes did not want to leave their room for the fear of COVID and for the fear of everybody else is walking around like nothing is happening. But this thing is serious, it could kill you. This thing, you are taking it as if it's an everyday walk, but it's not an everyday walk. So they only came out of their room, and I am telling you, we couldn't even get them to participate in the sport that they were chosen to do for the fear of this thing. And again, we're talking about persons with disabilities, but I do believe that even persons without disabilities had some of these same problems. And one of the things we have to understand is that even if we are putting things in place, a lot of times we put things in place of a physical nature. The mental capacity of every individual is important. How do you deal with this? You have to get them to trust you in a way that you are not going to put them into that space that will remind them that this is dangerous. You have to get them to believe that you will guide them into a place where it is safe. You have to get them to understand that if they live in this moment or in this phobia, that it could only get worse. And the key thing about that, Mr. Thompson, in getting all of this done, it has to be somebody who they trust. So, going back to what we were talking earlier, again, I say these are some of the things that we need to put in place. These are some of the conversations we need to have. Programs like this and others, it's starting the way. And as my father says, once you start, there will be an end. So put the things in place, not only to help persons with disabilities, but to help a country, to help a nation, and to develop a world. And when I say develop a world, develop the world where persons with disabilities can be comforted, can live independent lives, can live to the best of their potential. Thank you.
If you recognize Mr. Mackey.
Good night, everybody. We have an excellent panel. Put your hands together. We would do ourselves a great injustice if this is just a one-part series. We have to have part 2, part 3, and part 4 if necessary. And Metro Saint will stand behind you with that program. We can't leave this here. So Metro Saint IKTV, we are happy to be associated with what you started 2 years ago, First Initiative. That program has been running for 2 years and still in great demand and still well loved and looked on. This, I'm sure, is going to have as much attention. So, challenge to the ex-teachers, part 2, part 3, maybe part 4. All right? I want to draw something out of the panelists now. One of the greatest vehicles for national visibility is the Special Olympics, sports, and also opportunity through culture as well. Karen mentioned about community Olympics. I don't know if that is a stepping stone towards preparing our athletes for the Special Olympics. But you also have blind cricket, football, a number of sporting activities that take place now regionally and internationally. When you see our Olympians come back, Special Olympics, come back from Special Olympics with medals, I mean, they're the proudest people in the world. And they are given the same treatment, VIP treatment at the Argyle International Airport, right, Terrance? VIP treatment when they come back. And it's a proud moment for their families and for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And they go out there and do well. Put your hands together for the Special Olympians of the past. So what I want to draw out from the panelists now is how can we even better structure preparation and involvement. Junior, you're a sportsman. I'm sure that you want to win on this. How can we better structure the preparation of all of our differently abled persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to get involved from the school level, community level, and at the national level?
Well, we've had a start. We've had a start. And this start, I would go back to what Ms. Azor said in her earlier remarks. This start came out from a couple of ladies who some back in the day thought were crazy, and I'm talking about 1978 and onwards. Because they created not just a space for learning, but they created a space for sports. They created a space for human development, which was different. Touching on the sporting aspect, in 1981, if my memory serves me right, St. Vincent and the Grenadines went to Special Olympics internationally, its very first time. I can tell you this because this was the history that was passed on to me. But this movement called Special Olympics also came about because of a lady called Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who saw what the benefits of training and competition can do for an individual from the beginning of their sporting life even until after they would have left. What we have to do, or what is already in place at a certain point, is that in Special Olympics, you get to become actively involved in competition from the age of 8 to 100 plus once you are physically able. Before that, there's what you call the starter program, which does skill sets that helps to develop your motor skills, that helps to develop your sporting skills and so forth. What we have to do as a people to continue this is to meet with the different sporting organizations, is to meet with the persons who are interested in getting sports to move forward on a level where there's not a bias, on a level where it's not political, on a level where everybody is equal. Sit down, have a conversation, and find out, do you as persons with disabilities think that this can work instead of having a conversation, sitting down and saying, oh, we could do this could work. And then when you get there, what they actually are looking for is something different. But to change anything, education is the way forward. To change anything, participation is the way forward. I hope that I've answered your question.
I'll just add one or two ideas to the discussion. A very important point, says, I believe earlier when we talk about Special Olympics as a country, we only pay attention to it when it's happening overseas, so to speak. It happened in Germany, it happened in Ireland, it happened wherever the Olympic is taking place, and then we will hear, oh, St. Vincent have a team, and then our team come back with medals and so. I say this because you hardly see at the national level, or even at the community level, opportunities where there is some public support being given to those Olympians or these athletes who are representing our country. I don't know, but the same how we could integrate our students in the school system. The minister talked about the integration of at all levels. Can't we integrate in sports the children who are also performing in a wheelchair, for that matter? Can't the school sports have arrangements where some of the Special Olympians and other persons with special needs have their own races? Why inter-secondary school sports don't have some mechanism for some of these students being a part of it? So this is something, if we talk genuinely about inclusion, we have to give that little support and encouragement by putting them on the stage. At the school level, like at my school, the Association for People with Disability, Helping Hand Center, we have our children engaging in sports. We build a little playground where the children are developing some of their motor skills and try to become involved in other kinds of sports. We have to be able to move from that level where they're doing it at the school level and carry it into competition. So the challenge is there. The sporting bodies, Seth made the point, you have Olympics, not Olympic, athlete, the Athletic Association, Cricket Association, football. We need to have, just how we are coming to the point where we integrate many of these sports with women, the persons with disability could also have a space to be part of them.
Yes, Ms. Garrett.
Okay. Panelists, Minister of Education, everyone, good night. It's not a question. I'm just going to say something that I experienced. And Terrance talked about attitude. And attitude towards these Special Olympic people is very, very important. My experience that I do cruise, right? And we saw a gentleman was coming in a wheelchair to go on a boat for a tour. And we were there. We go. That was our attitude, right? When he gets on, when we get to the stop to swim in Bacchus, this gentleman who's amputated both legs, he wanted to go to swim. And we were like, oh, here go. That's our attitude towards that person. You know, when he went into the water, we assisted him. When he gets into the water, we were so surprised how far this gentleman went. When he came back, we applaud him. He said he does swimming from one island to the other island. And we really appreciate that. And that happened quite a bit of years. And from that, my experience is treating people with disability with good attitude. We do love them. All right? Thank you. That was just a contribution.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, Sharon, actually, that story adds, in fact, dealt with the question that Pajak has challenged us to deal with. Pajak wanted us to address the kind of attitude within the system. So that clearly point out to us that we have to have a better approach. We have to acknowledge we are all human beings. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, all of us in this room have some level of disability. All of us. And we must recognize each of us in the same way. We all have some level of disability. I am beginning to become forgetful. That is a form of disability. And we have challenges as we age. We get problems with eyesight and all of that, physical pain and all that. So we must change our attitude. We must appreciate, support, encourage, and one important word, love each other.
Love.
And if we do that, we will all be able to develop and have a harmonious system. Thanks.
Okay,
Let me just pause for a while to recognize our sponsors, Metrosin General Insurance Company Limited and IKTV. Thank you so much.
Okay, to address Mr. Mackey's concern, our little community Olympic, I'm not sure if any of our team members would make it to the Special Olympics. I know that within our disability program in Rosebank, we have one of the Special Olympians. His name is Logie, Mr. Logie, and he attends the program where he interacts with other persons. The COOL campaign targets persons who are intellectually challenged, persons with physical motor deficit, persons who are visually impaired, persons who are hearing impaired, visual and mental. So some of the games that we would play in the COOL campaign: walk relay, wheelchair races, cricket, leg races, egg and spoon. So you must have a team, and your team must comprise of a youth, an elderly, a male, a female, who can be single parent, and it must have someone who is differently abled. I think our next game should be next Friday, so I'm not sure if persons can, at Calico. I'm not sure as a time as yet, but if you're in the Calico area, you will see the tent and you will hear the music, and you can stop by and have a look. We usually post on the ministry's page, that's the Ministry of National Mobilization page, our activities there. So you can take a look subscribe to our page, like and follow on Facebook, and you can see some of the activities. And I am sure, Mr. Mackey, that I will engage our PS, Mrs. Burke, and our director, Mrs. Payne, that Metrocent is willing and able to partner with the Ministry of National Mobilization. We've got you covered. And mobilization was one of the ministries that you started at, right? So I see the passion. So I'll make sure that the news gets to management.
Okay, I recognize the president.
No, it's okay. I'm a tough guy. Skinny guy, right? You remember those movies? I just wanted to put historical context to this. This organization's first project in St. Vincent and the Grenadines was working with the school for special needs. And we got attached with someone who has since passed on. Seemed like there's a team these days. Miss Velma Jackson, who eventually ended up being a liaison officer. And we were engaged there for a while, and then as in Vinci culture, ways of life, whatever, there was a flood of people coming there to help. So we kind of eased out. It's kind of ironic, 42 years we're back where we started in more ways than one. And one of the, linking it to our next event, one of my patrons who I encountered in Indian Bay when I go and get my soap says, what's going on with he heard me talking about that history and he said, I gotta come and support the luncheon. Because I told him, one of the things I do before I leave is make sure we reconnect with the School for Special Needs. So himself, I have to do it personally, and I know I could always tap into some people, because he says there's a little bit of work need to be done there. So somehow in the next month or 2 or 3, that might be the duration of my time, I'll make that reconnection to where we started some time ago. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, we can take 2 more. We can take 2 more comments or questions.
Just a question for Ms. Nero. You spoke about the games, okay? Is the Special Olympics, SVG Special Olympics, aware of
The games were designed, do you hear me? So the games, the Community Olympic Game is not affiliated with Special Olympics, but we will have a conversation with them because this was part of our strategy to involve persons who are differently able to participate in sport, right? As I said, it is an ongoing, it will be ongoing for us to liaise with stakeholders who will work along with the ministry. As I said, I have my coworker Terrance, so he will also assist in networking, right? So we're advocating, we're creating awareness, and one step at a time, we're trying to reach as many persons as possible.
They haven't started as yet, have they?
The games?
Have the games started as yet?
Yes, our community games
So it's
have
an
started.
ongoing
So
thing.
we are having the finals on Friday. So hopefully next year with sponsorship, we'll have finance for media awareness, marketing our games. So we will put it on our Facebook pages and, give you more insight about it. But this was a strategy to empower persons with disability. So that's why we call it the Cool Campaign. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take on, yes, please. We have 2. Okay, I'm gonna slip in another one.
Mention was made of teachers was trained to teach in the disabled in the schools. But what about the disabled who is confined at home? Workers who work with these disabled people at home, do they have training to work with these people at home who are confined at home? And the reason why I mentioned that is because in my neighborhood, there was a worker working with someone at home, and she had a day off, went home, come back with COVID, caught the COVID, and apparently passed it on to that worker, to that disabled person. And the folks around him couldn't detect what wrong with him. So he ended up got the COVID and died also. So both of them died. Allegedly, he caught the COVID and died because maybe his reaction, the folks around him didn't know what was taking place. So that is the reason why I asked if the question of the workers.
Yes, training is made available for our home care providers. Training, as you know, is ongoing, so we try to have refresher courses for our home care providers. My condolences on the passing of both individuals during that COVID period, but our workers, we try to have courses for them so that, you know, they can be abreast of the health issues that are arising, you know, each day.
I may just add to that question, Ainsley. The Association for People with Disability, our Helping Hand Center, we have a program where the Helping Hand Center is the daily school program. But during each month the staff will not have there's a day when they will not see the children at the school, but they will go to the homes of different children and work with the parents for that day. Develop a program with them and guide them how to take care of whatever disability the child at that home. So we have a registration list of children who are at home with severe disabilities, and our staff will take time during the month to go to the different children and work with their parents. In addition, we have a parent support program. Since we're dealing with economics, we try to find opportunities for the parents of those children with disability to get employment. Because a lot of time, it is more expensive to take care of a person with disability than a normal child. Most of the time, they can't catch the public transport. They will have to take a taxi to move them to go to some place. So it takes more out of them. And many times they are not working. So we have a program to support parents where they have children with disabilities so that they could be gainfully employed and have some means of assisting the child.
Yeah. As I had mentioned earlier, we are trying to create a disability registry for persons with disability. Also, we want persons who have persons with disability to come to the office, have that conversation. Some of the persons who receive our disability grants, they are sometimes referred to other stakeholders who can provide intervention for, you know, their needs. We have counselors at the ministry. So you might find that a parent who has somebody who's maybe neurodiverse, and this can be very overwhelming depending how the child or person is on the spectrum. They can see the counselor. We also encourage them to join associations that are affiliated and support various disability. We also provide uniform support for students at the School for Children with Special Needs. We also give the grants so that parents and caregivers can improve their socioeconomic condition and improve their person with disability standard of living. So once we have that registry, we would try to liaise with other stakeholders and make the necessary referral to those caregivers, because psychosocial support, it is vital, right? So once there is need for psychosocial support counseling, we try to direct them to the counselor at the department or through the Ministry of Health or any supporting agency that is available.
Yes, let me just, I'm sorry to come back again. Ainsley, oh gosh, I was on a little high before you came and said what you said there, you know? I mean, that was a donger, you know? Oh gosh, you know, and I want to put a question to Miss Azor. I'm proud of the fact that my mother was one of the founding starters of the School for Special Needs, along with Velma and Thelma and Marjorie Jackson and so forth. And as a medical student, she used to encourage me to come back. And I remember doing a little program with the School for Special Needs. I wasn't a doctor yet, but I felt like a doctor, you know. Talking to them. That was really interesting. But one of the interesting things was that she had noted that in certain parts of our country, like North Leeward, and I'm sure this must go for North Windward and the Grenadines, are some of our programs highly concentrated in Kingstown and its environs. So, Mr. Azor, I wanted to just get it. How can we reach out to areas where transportation is so difficult and can't be reached? And I'm wondering if, and I know there are some challenges with the use of information technology, but and we had made a big effort this evening to have someone here to be able to do sign language, but it didn't happen. But I'm wondering if there are programs that can be adopted from other countries, whether other Caribbean countries, Jamaica, where you be culturally similar, or from Africa, that can be used in some of these rural areas, and of course the urban areas. But do you find, Ms. Azor, or how can folks with challenges in an area like North Leeward, an area like North Windward, or the Grenadines, that may be a little far with transportation, be included in the program?
I believe in decentralization, but that will come at a cost. So we have to find investors and stakeholders who will be willing to help. We can also tap into the Ministry of Mobilization. Right now, every clinic in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have directories of persons with disabilities. In terms of getting those directories updated, it's in the process. So once we identify people, elderly children, who have challenges, we take the initiative to get them to places where they can be transported. It's unfortunate that we don't have hubs in the far-reaching areas, but persons, some of them, even though they may have access to some schools in their areas, they want to come to town. Now we have the school in Kingstown, one in Georgetown, one in Bacchus, right? There are also private schools. Some persons would rather their children go to the private schools, but in terms of transportation, things can be put in place to meet that need. Right now, through Mr. Bacchus's organization, we have a school bus that provides transportation for children on the windward side, right? But we're yet to get to the leeward side. So children who are coming from that distance, they sometimes use the school buses that are provided by the Ministry of Education.
Dr. Thompson here, the marijuana organization can donate a bus so that we could easily manage it, Dr. Thompson. I am managing the bus. We bring children from Stubbs and right down into town on a daily basis. I'll be willing to take a bus from you and put it for the Leeward end and bring the children to the school. So that's a challenge going out to you, Doc.
But to you, Dr. Thompson, I must say, as I said earlier, we have disability empowerment programs, one on the Windward, one in Rosebank, and the participants who are attending these sessions, the bus takes them to the center in Rosebank. There's the facilitator, and then they return safely to their destination. Beckway, we have a program at the library in Beckway, and the bus goes from mainland to Beckway and pick them up from their homes and take them to the program and return them safely to their home. And as you know, Beckway is very mountainous, so our bus transports them right up to Derrick Hill and to Paget Farm and Oka and places that they reside. So we are starting with the support groups, and the participants are enjoying themselves, and we would continue to advocate for any assistance that can be given to the Ministry of National Mobilization. Feel free to speak to the minister or the PS or the director or any of the directors about your contribution. So I'll relay that information on Monday, that Mr. Thompson is willing to support. Metro Center, of course, is willing to support. So we are grateful. We welcome partnership, you know. And yes, of course, Metro Center can give us a year of insurance coverage for the buses.
Okay, we'll now take Dr. Ambrose. I think the final presentation or comment, question.
I'm not sure what you're asking me to do, but I tell you, I stand up as, I almost said a two-headed person, wearing two hats in a way. As a member of St. Vincent and Grenadines Ex Teachers Association, I remember our motto, together for growth, to learn, to teach, and to help. For 42 years, we haven't changed our motto. And I don't think we plan on changing it now. Together for growth, to learn, to teach, and to help. The second hat that I'm wearing is that of a physician. And I feel proud that very few people know or understand. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that I'm proud. Very few people know or understand my field of medicine. I am referred to in my field as a physiatrist. What? Specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And to make a long story short, in my field, disability is the common underlying process. Now, I heard us discussing access for the disabled, but we haven't defined what a disability is. We have identified, and my moderator did in the beginning, define or mention an impairment, which is not a disability. Because if I look up on the stage now, I see 2 people wearing glasses. Would you consider them disabled? If I take away the glasses,
Activity limitation.
now you see? So if the disabled have what they need, or if the impaired doesn't have what the impaired needs, they become disabled. So sometimes we actually make people disabled, or we force them into disability. Since this is going international because of TV, I will not give you the story of how many people in my field of medicine actually claim to be disabled. But we're not going to go there. Now, similarly, and I'm very sensitive to this because I realize that in this small audience, we had at least 3 or maybe 4 present or past ministers of government, all from the same party. And I am not dumb enough to think that somebody is going to think that this was a political arrangement. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Ex Teachers Association is apolitical when it comes to party. Very political when it comes to dealing with people, because politics is of the people, but we don't choose party. Okay, so I say so, we say so, and the record would show. And that is for all consumers, please. So in talking about the impairment and the disability and the handicap, there's one thing I want to mention, something which we might overlook easily. In my field, for example, we focus on things like the physical disability, help with transportation, help with, getting people from point A to point B, somebody to take care of somebody else. But somebody mentioned something which was very important, which was the language barrier. And although there are not a lot of language interpreters here, my former Minister of Technology would admit that since we have the internet now and Wi-Fi all over, we can feed into almost any language bank in the world. So that particular challenge doesn't have to be one that we can't overcome. We are not too small to feed into what's available there. And truth be told, we have a lot to offer. See, I was hoping to tell people that disability is big business. The economy part of the discussion was not protracted. But if you're interested, you can get a job taking care of disabled persons as a doctor, as a physical therapist, as an occupational therapist, as a speech-language pathologist, as a physical therapist aide, as a prosthetist. those people who make the artificial limbs and that kind of a thing. So for those of us who think we don't have anything to do with disabled, we actually might be able to make a living off of involvement with the disabled. Attitude oftentimes would determine altitude. And screening, and unfortunately, Ms. Azor, I got to disagree with you. Sometimes, as parents, it takes somebody else to recognize that our child is disabled. So, screening should be done at every stage, even before the child reaches what we consider to be school age. We tend to blame others or try to find ourselves blameless, but at every level, each one of us has to be responsible and responsive to those that we consider disabled, because sooner or later it hits us, right, Jackie? So thank you very much for being patient with me, and I pledge, in fact I've had conversation with Mr. Bacchus before, but I pledge to use whatever skill, opportunity, and everything is at my disposal to do what I can to make a difference.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ambrose. And I believe somebody's taking notes, so we hold you to what you just said. My brothers and sisters, we've come to the end of our discussion, and you will agree with me that it's very thought-provoking. A lot of things were revealed, and coming out from it, we realized that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are on our way to where we ought to be. But it will take a collaborative effort. All of us have to put our hearts and hands and everything together. Dr. Ambrose mentioned something that we didn't speak about, and I had it jot down here where I'm going to raise it, the parents' denial, and that we have to do some bit of, we need to educate our entire community, especially on that part of the disability that is not seen. Also, as teachers, we also have to change our mindset. We have to maybe look at areas in terms of where we enhance our studies that will benefit these our individual. But while I say that, it's important to note, and our Minister of Education probably forget, that we have about 25 teachers who now have first degree in special education. And also I cannot remember the number of teachers that went on to do their masters. When I'm still a teacher, I try to encourage the young teachers who are acquiring or thinking about acquiring higher education to go look into these areas, speech pathologists, and all those areas that we need them. If we are to really have that proper inclusion, we need that, so that they will be able to help to identify our children early and to give them that level of assistance. And I will reiterate our attitude. We need to realize that those same children they will be living They have to live in our community and grow up in our community. So the earlier we embrace them, it will be better for all of us. Coming out from all the discussion, my little understanding, we need to build community education. We need to use inclusive language. We need to make the physical space accessible. We need to accommodate the non-physical needs of our children and adults. And we need to create that safe, accessible transport option. That a lot was said about it. And we need to ensure equal access to information. So I think it brings us to the point where Mr. Azor referred to us having, we should have had somebody signing on so that those persons out there can easily understand what we were saying. So in a nutshell, I just want to thank the Svg Ex Teachers Association in New York for the well thought out topic. I think it was well received. Sorry that we didn't have more persons there to hear about this. But we can tell somebody, we are charged this evening to go and share what we learn here with somebody else. I don't think it's my duty to say thank you, so I'm going to pause here, but ask you once again to give our 4 esteemed panelists a big round of applause. And I'll hand you over to Dr. Ambrose. Oh, sorry. That's very sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Or good night. It is my duty to just say thank you. It may not sound like something that is big, but we always have to say thank you, which is very important. First of all, we want to thank God for bringing us here and hope that He will take us all safely to our individual abode. I want to thank the panel, Ms. Nero, Ms. Azor, Terrance, well, Mr. Davis, sorry. I'm very much acquainted with Terrance, so, and Mr. Bacchus. Because I call these people first names, sometimes you forget their surnames. We want to thank you for a very inspiring, educational, and interesting set of conversations from each and every one of you. I just hope that our persons who are listening actually took in what you were saying and learn something from each of your delivery. Ms. Joy Matthews, thank you so much for coming to our assistance to moderate and do what you do. Very good. To the persons who made it possible to be here, we want to thank you individually. Thanks for coming. We appreciate you. And we look forward for your continued support. That's the persons, especially those persons outside of the association itself. We have a function on Sunday, and we're hoping that we can see you at our luncheon as well on Sunday. To those persons in, as long ago used to say radio land, but in TV land or internet land, those persons who are listening to us from far and near, I went in and I saw a couple of persons. We want to thank you for sticking around with us and listening. And we hope that this conversation can continue. You have listened to what we have said, and we're hoping that we can carry on the conversation to help to achieve some of the things that we are hoping to achieve. To each and every person, the persons who were bringing the radio, making sure that persons see what we are doing here, we thank you guys for being with us. And last but not least, and very importantly, we want to thank the sponsors. Metrosin Insurance, IKTV, without you, this would not have been what it is for tonight. So thank you very much. And we look forward for the continued sponsorship and support. I hope I did not leave out anybody. I know Mr. Mackey have something else to do, and he's going to make some presentations as well. After we have done our presentation, we have a little snack for you. It's just a snack and a drink, so we invite you to participate. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you so much. But before you close off, as you would know, Mr. Mackey would make that presentation. Thank you, guys. Okay, Ms. Nero, come forward, please. This is just a little token. Thank you.
Careful. Correct.
Mr. Azor, if you don't mind, join Mr. Mackey.
Careful, careful.
Mr. Davis. All right, Mr. Bacchus. Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, Ms. Matthews. Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Go rest me old self.